This is certainly true that social situations feel threatening because of past experience in social situations, because of the way our nervous system is set up, our survival system is set up to try to be included in the group, in the family. So if we've had experiences in our family of origin, especially, but also in school and in other social situations of being excluded or of being hurt, then naturally we're going to have some issues around that. And we talked about this a minute ago about this the neuroception that the brain is affected by trauma. When we look at family and social relationships, this is where we learn about social trust. We learn, are we safe with our parents, our siblings, our family? So often the answer is maybe a little bit in some ways, but maybe not. And over the years, as I talk with other people, I really am so grateful that in my home, I didn't have any fear that I would be hurt physically, sexually abused. I wasn't ridiculed. In my mother's family, we were, but not at home. There was no alcohol, drug addiction. My mom wasn't mean. She wasn't a narcissist. She didn't try and squash me. And my trauma happened a little bit older. I was 12, and there was a profound disconnection at home that there wasn't that kind of targeting. And so that makes it so much harder when children grow up in a home where they're targeted and where you don't feel safe in your own home. And so the whole brain development is affected by that, of course. We don't develop those neural networks for connection because we don't feel it. We don't, it's not our experience. And we do develop a lot of vigilance and protective mechanisms around being hurt. And it's really based on our experience. And sometimes this shows up in really obvious ways, like when I think about going to that meeting, or I think about going to the grocery store during COVID, or I think about getting together with that group of friends, I feel maybe our core deficiency beliefs come up. We start panicking. We have some of those really obvious, more extreme reactions. But a lot of times, what I found is we just kind of turn our head and we just kind of, well, I don't really want to do that, or I'm not feeling up to it tonight, or even to ourselves, we might not really see that this is social anxiety because we kind of preemptively avoid situations where we might be socially hurt. So, one thing that we know, the royal we researchers have discovered, especially over the last 20 years of working somatically, and Peter Levine's work, Stephen Porges' work in particular with the polyvagal system, is that humans are wired to be connected and to be attached. So we're going to work with directly with attachment in some upcoming classes on Sundays. But we have a lot of urgency around being connected and attached because that's how we actually live to be an adult. And so children have that longing for safety and connection and are very distressed when that doesn't happen. And that really feeds into our adult lives as well. So we might be feeling quite safe and comfortable in our home, especially around COVID, but that's not how we're wired. We actually need more. And Stephen Porges talked about safety is the lack of threat plus a feeling of connection, that just the lack of threat isn't enough for us. And so here we are in our own home, we're safe, we're watching other people having fun on, TV shows and movies. And I'm actually kind of a big proponent of that. I think it's very down regulating for our nervous system. And we feel very connected often to characters in movies, especially long-term TV shows where you can watch, 14 or 15 seasons, I think now, of Grey's Anatomy or other long-term shows. And we get to feel like those people are part of our circle, like they're part of those are our people. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think sometimes it can be very helpful, especially right now. And we also don't wanna do it all the time because it's not the same. So one of the ways that we can rebuild social trust is by taking small risks. And I'm a big, big fan of volunteering because I think it brings us more than we ever give. We have opportunities to connect with people. It's generally a safe environment, not necessarily, but often it is. And we're doing something that's meaningful. We're helping, and whatever it might be. And right now, I know that that's a little bit harder because a lot of the volunteer things are in person. But whatever those small risks might be, whether it's, finding a volunteer opportunity online where you check in with a senior in your community over Zoom or whatever it might be, there's so many things it could be. That it's worth starting by recognizing that we take small risks. And then as we take a risk, things get better and our window of tolerance opens a bit. And then we do the next small thing and that kind of that's how it works. Another thing is we could go with friend. One of the things my meditation teacher used to talk about sometimes is he'd say, people tell me all the time that they're scared to go into a room, even at the meditation center where he taught, because they don't know if someone's going to talk to them or whatever. And he said, so turn that around and just go over to someone else who looks anxious. If we look around the room, we'll always find somebody else who looks a little bit anxious or shut down or jittery, and see about kind of how could we make them comfortable is another kind of strategy. So the tools part, so we have these two components. We have reducing the threat, which we're going to work on in a few minutes, and then so it's our threat perception we're working with. And it's not to say that there's no threat. There are threats, definitely. But to also then use the tools to increase our resilience and increase our comfort. So some of them are breathing. Some of them are relaxing your forehead, relax your shoulders, see if you can get your feet under you. And then also these 6-second exhalations. So if we do a practice of calming ourselves with longer exhalations before we go and of checking in with our body and really tuning in. But when you're in a social situation, if you talk in longer sentences, so if you breathe in, and then when you talk, you don't have to take an in breath at the end of every sentence. You could just pause for a moment and keep on going, and then pause for another minute, keep on going, and then take an in breath. So that's a really powerful tool to remember because oftentimes when we're anxious or when someone around us is anxious, they talk really fast and they take little sips of air and they're not really using the breath to relax. The breath gets more agitating. So that's one of the things that I think is very helpful to remember. And this is just kind of a tip that might not be quite as useful as it would be pre-COVID. But when you are talking to somebody, there's so many times we'll say, "How are you?" "I'm fine." But if you're talking to somebody, you could ask other kinds of questions like, "What do you like to do for fun?" or "How are you doing during the lockdown?" And just to listen for a moment and see what they have to say. So now for the inquiry. I'd like for everyone to pick something, whatever it is that might be a little bit difficult for you. And it could be something that's really right in your face right now. You have this thing coming up you have to go to. It could be something that you're worried about maybe going to, or you haven't decided yet if you're going what you're going to do. Pick something. It doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10, but we're going to do this little practice. So the idea of the practice is that we start in. So for instance, I'm going to go to the grocery store. So I've been doing curbside pickup. I haven't been inside a store, but now I've decided I'm going to do that. So what are the steps? So the first decision is, or the first action might be that I'm going to get into my car. I'm already feeling, well, what am I feeling? So we're going to walk through this in slow motion. I'll pull up into the parking lot. I'll get out of the car. I'll walk to the door. I'll have my mask on. I'll see someone else without a mask. I'll get into the store. So we're going to take it for about 10 minutes or so. We'll give ourselves enough time to kind of work with this. And then just kind of each time you stop, and I might not be completely synced with your experience. So feel free, to just kind of keep on going with what you're doing. But each time we stop, notice your breath. So get grounded again. And then we'll work with tapping in different ways. Because when we feel anxious about something, especially something in the future, it's because we have thoughts about it. They come in as words or pictures, either still pictures or video clips. So that's something we can work on using these tools that we have. So feel it in your body right now. Notice what your body feels like as you're thinking about this. And bring up this event or this situation that you're going to work with. And notice how it comes up. Probably there's words attached, likely images too. So I'm going to go to the grocery store, whatever you're working with. And just notice what happened in your body. Did your breath change at all? So if your breath got a little bit shaky, you start holding your breath, let it even back out again. Maybe you got kind of involved in the thoughts and you've kind of lost track of your body. So just kind of settle back into your seat, your feet. And then bring forward the first step that you're going to work with. So you can jump a few steps ahead. It doesn't have to be one, 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 one. Something that, here I am, I'm standing in the parking lot at the grocery store. I've got my mask on. I'm seeing that not everybody else does. There seems to be quite a few people in the store. What am I feeling now? And what are the thoughts that are there? Try to use your breath to remain very present. And I'm looking at these images. So, images, they respond well to tapping. Tap with 2 fingers on your forehead. Take your attention into the sound and the sensation of the forehead tapping away from the picture. Or open your eyes, put it on the wall across from you, look at it, focus on the wall, focus back on that. Take a few breaths. What's the threat there? What's the worst that could happen? What are some of the catastrophic thoughts that are happening there? And it could be that person's not going to stay 6 feet away. It could be, I'm going to get the virus and you see yourself in ICU. It could be anything. So let's take a minute to look at that. What are the thoughts that are there? And what is the reaction in your body? So if you've tightened up your shoulders, you're bracing yourself, let your shoulders relax. Take a couple of deep breaths, long 6-second exhalations as you look at what is the threat. What is your mind telling you? In particular, let's work with the thoughts. If you're hearing words, if you're seeing them in your mind's eye, do some tapping, put the image in a frame across the room or in your mind's eye. Notice the space all around the image. Take your eyes around it clockwise, counterclockwise a few times. Breathe. And then you could stay with that for a while if you want, or you could move on to the next image. What's the next thing that might happen? And notice if you can really observe the energetic reaction in your body. Your shoulders tighten up, are you gritting your teeth? Do you have a black hole in your belly? What's going on in your energetic field in your body? This could happen. This is the threat. Deep breaths. Let's work directly with the energy. So if you have a clench in your gut, for instance. Notice what that feels like. There's some muscles tightening. You might have a feeling of dread in the pit of your stomach. You might have a tight fist. What exactly does it feel like? So locate it and notice where it is and how far it goes. Is this something that's, 3 or 4 inches in your belly? Is it your whole body? Is it up into your chest? What is the location and where does it end? And how would you describe it to a scientist? It's hot, it's cold, it's moving, it's still. I have an image of it. If you have an image, look at the image again and do some tapping. And we might also ask, why is this here? Why is this energy here? Is it here to warn you, protect you? And see if you could allow that protective energy to be there. Is that okay? And you might be trying to talk yourself out of it. Well, there's actually, very low risk here. I've got a mask on, so does everybody else. I'll stay away from people. But notice what it feels like in your body. Do you believe that in your body? So we're noticing the accuracy of the threat, what could happen, the catastrophic thinking that often comes along with that. Well, this could happen, and we could work with those thoughts. And then we can resource ourselves. Come back to the breath. Come back to noticing that you're not actually at a grocery store. There's nobody around that can breathe on you right now. You're doing an exercise, a practice. And then let go of the practice. We're going to come back to the group here in a minute. So, this is something that once we have the basic structure of it, we could do a lot of different times on the same thing or on different things. So, what we're doing is we're looking, what's the threat? And when we look at a threat, it comes in as two things, thoughts and energy in the body. And how can we really be present with that threat and really see, okay, what I'm really worried about is that somebody is going to have it and they're going to cough on me. Or what I can see is I'm going right to the end. I'm going to have COVID and I'm going to die alone in the hospital. And so then we can work with those catastrophic thoughts individually as thoughts, words, and pictures. And they're velcroed to energy and sensation in our body, which makes them feel real. And then once we kind of are present with that, we see what it is that's going on, then we can use the tools we have to build resilience. So, a big part of this is to stay present in this moment. And we do that by feet on the floor, seat in the chair, noticing our breath. You can put your hand on your heart. You could hold your own hands, feel the warmth and support as you're holding your own hand. So let the practice go. Let's stop the practice now. Look around the room with your eyes open. Look around and just kind of reassuring yourself through your eyes that you're not in a risky situation right now. And turn to your side, look behind you, come back to the center, look around to the other side. Let your eyes notice that there's no danger. And the next part of this practice, which we're not going to do today, we'll do a little bit more next week with this, is to visualize the whole thing as a confident, grounded, calm person. So that's the next step that you could do is you could go back to this visualizing and see yourself going into the grocery store. You're calm, you're breathing, you're going through the aisles, you're vigilant but not hyper vigilant. So that's another step that we can take this, and we'll do some of that next week. So for now, come back, let the practice go.